Welcome in another edition of Dealing with the Devils on Talking Ball. We are previewing the game with Niagara, the first of two Brotherhood run games this weekend. And I think the most fun part about it when I was looking at the scheduling, Duke plays Friday, Niagara. Then Niagara will play Howard Saturday. And then Howard plays Duke on Sunday. So they clearly had this thing well coordinated between the three coaches.
And a lot of fun for Niagara and Howard, and more opportunity for Duke to figure out and fine tune things the way that Coach Shire wants it done.
That's right. That's right. So spend a little bit of time talking about Niagara. Coach Greg Paulus coming back to Cameron. That'll be fun. And talk about a little bit about their team, and then I think on today's episode we could spend a little bit of time talking through. We're 5 games in. How do we feel about the team? How do we feel each player is doing? A little bit of a recap, if you will. So Greg Paulus, it was going back looking through his history with Duke. Um, I remember the end of Greg Paulus and being in middle school at the time. He was not, listen, I'll get this out the way. He was not my favorite Duke player of all time.
Was
But
he the Jack? Was he the quarterback also?
I was just about to get there. He is,
I sorry.
no, all good, all good. He's up there with one of the better multi-sport athletes in college sports history just because of the fact that he played high level college basketball for Duke, and then he was a quarterback for 1 year with Syracuse. Uh, and in high school, it's even better because he was the 2004 Gatorade National Football Player of the Year, and he was also Mr. Basketball in New York, which says a lot. He was a tremendous high school athlete, and now he's on his 7th season in the helm for Niagara basketball. So he's found himself a home as a college basketball head coach.
Jack,
So
if you're looking, where did he play his high school basketball?
uh, I could tell you in a couple seconds here. He played. He was on Christian Brothers Academy football team, so I imagine that's where he played his high school basketball as well.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, tremendous athlete, Greg Paulus, and then he bounced around a bit as an assistant coach. Spent some time with George Washington, with Louisville, and then ended up as an assistant with Niagara. Took over as an interim, and now is in his 7th season. So good for Mr. Paulus there. He's got a team coming into this game that's 2-2. The Niagara Purple Eagles. I'm sure everybody knew that. And look, they're not the biggest team. Their top 7 guys, their biggest guy is 6'8", so they're not going to present a size challenge. But what I will say, they're a pretty good 3-point shooting team. They're 38% coming into this game in 4 games. So I think that is one area of Duke's defense where you can find opportunities. And so I'm curious how Duke will do defending the 3-point line against a team that can shoot the three pretty well. And the only other note I have is they play at a slow tempo. They're in the bottom 20% of teams in tempo. So it's not going to be like the Indiana State game where it was up and down really quick. Indiana State was looking to push. I don't see that being the case in this one for the Blue Devils against the Purple Eagles.
Um, Home, getting ready for the holidays. We'll wait for the score predictions.
We'll wait. We'll wait. So let's go into Duke because I've got some fun stats. I don't know what you've got prepared. That's kind of the fun of the show here. Um, but I think we could spend some time talking about the Duke players heading into this game. How do we feel? We're 5 games in. So, we still have small samples, but we're not 1, 2, or 3 games in. We've got 5 games to look at, and we've got 2 games against high major competition in Texas and Kansas that we can evaluate from as well. So what
You could throw in the exhibition.
true, the exhibition with Tennessee. I didn't do that for. I pulled some stats from the two games. It's a very good point.
Right.
I could have pulled from there, but I did not. So I guess before we jump into that, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel. We got to 2,000. We're on a road to 2,100. We're almost at 2010. So if you can help us get there, that'd be
Woohoo!
awesome. And drop your comments. What are your score predictions? How do you feel about the team 5 games in? Let us know in the comments. We will definitely respond to you there. So I want to start with this because I looked at the stats for 2 games, the 2 big games. In fairness to you, maybe could have included the Tennessee exhibition, but I just wanted to look at the games that count. I want to look at the games that count. And I felt this way from watching the games, but statistically, our biggest riser, and it's not close, is Isaiah Evans. In those 2 games, almost 20 points for Mr. Evans, 2.5 rebounds, 2 assists, half a block, half a charge. We know he got that big one in the Kansas game. And 50% from the field, 47% from three, and 89% from the free throw line. And only half a turnover, and 1 turnover in those 2 games. And most notably, his minutes are way up compared to his season averages. 31 and a half minutes in those games. The only other guy besides Cam to be playing over 30 minutes a game. So it's fascinating when you look at the other 3 games. He's at around 20 minutes a game, but in the big games, Shire's trusting him and letting him play, and he is more than deserving of that trust with the way he's played in the 2 big games for Duke so far.
So are you continuing to just do the team, or are we going to, do you want my comments on Quick Draw's performance so far?
Go to quick draw, and then we can go the team, and then we'll go back to individual players.
Okay. Look, if you wanted to know that each player would be getting better year to year, I am just thrilled at his performance so far. This isn't the sudden. I mean, yes, there was a lot of other players he had that needed the ball last year, but it's his turn, and he sure is making the best of it. And there are so many highlights, and his quickness to release. I don't know if it's possible, but I think it's even faster. And that was borne out in the Kansas game when you and I were having too much fun saying, okay, they have less than 2 seconds to attempt a shot. There's no way they can get a shot off. And the ball goes into the corner to him. And because of his release time, he drilled a, let me shut that off. He drilled a 3-pointer when we thought it was next to impossible. But there's even, and then his 3-point shot from the logo. I mean, it just was great.
Yeah, he's been special, and rightfully so. You highlighted the shooting, but the biggest difference between last year and this year, and it's has a lot to do with the fact he's playing 30 minutes compared to maybe 10, is he's got an opportunity to show off the rest of his game. I talked about he drew the charge in the Kansas game. His defense has been really good, and that's what kept him off the court early on in his Duke tenure. And that guy didn't pout. He didn't have a bad attitude about it. All you kept hearing from Shire was Evans kept saying he wants to work on his defense. He's staying extra to work on his defense. And he got better and better last year on that end of the court as the season went on. And he was the guy who filled in for Cooper in the starting lineup when he was out during the ACC tournament. And then he's picked up right where he left off on that end. And then also last year, towards the end of the year, he started to drive more to the lane, and
Slash.
we've seen
He's
more of
added that
that.
slashing component to his offense, which is great because you can't just stay on him as a 3-point shooter if he's going to take off. It's a great addition.
And his threat from his 3 point shot means defenders are closing out fast, which gives him just an extra ability to get past them. It makes it easier for him to get into the lane. And then he's shown off. He did have a couple turnovers in the Indiana State game, but in the bigger games, a passing ability. He's found shooters in the corner. He's got a good chemistry with Gangba both ways. Gangba does a good job finding him, and then he's shown a really nice ability finding Gangba with the alley oops. The the one where Gangba had the one handed slam in the Kansas game was tremendous, and so his Evans ascension, and not just the scoring and the shooting, I should say, not just the shooting, but the complete package from him has been awesome to watch this year, and he's been a lot of fun. He's just a lot of fun to like. I'm sure just being in the locker room with him is a lot of fun. Just his energy, his attitude. You know, he's got on his chain after the games. He just seems like a fun guy to be around.
And I'm glad you brought up the aspect of he seems to just totally enjoy being on the court. His 3-pointer
Tucks it away.
back in the holster. Then when he took the charge, he just seems to be thoroughly. I mean, it's so much fun to watch him on the court perform at a high level and to be enjoying it. It's just great because you sometimes lose sight of the fact that they're still young men and they should enjoy this. And he clearly is enjoying it.
He sure is. He sure is. He's still he turns 20 in a couple of weeks actually. So we should make sure to wish him a happy birthday. Couple weeks. I had to check my draft board to see when his birthday was coming up. So he's almost 20. He's Mr. Evans. And look, let's go to the team, and then we'll go back to player by player. So the team. It's very interesting to me because this is not a comparison. I want to say this though. Lost 5 starters from last year's team, right? You come into this year, there's still high expectations, but when you looked at where they were initially on like the ESPN early like season rankings, uh, you like to cite the New York Times, which is not our friend, uh, but where they were with them. And then there was even like a power rankings where Duke dropped after beating last week. They beat Army and Indiana State by like 45 points on average, and they dropped 8 spots or something. So they're not getting necessarily a ton of love, and yet when they've played their bye games, they've won by 40 points or so a game. Their closest margin of victory is the 12 points to Kansas, and Kansas played a tremendous game. And they're doing so while figuring it out on the fly. And the defense has been really good, which I think is a really promising sign. I think this team has really high potential, and we're starting to see them flashes of them figuring it out offensively in the big games, and that's what I want to watch for as we move forward here in these bigger matchups. How's the offensive chemistry develop?
I think for me, the pleasant surprise here is that when the season started, we looked at the roster. I said I'll be content with a Sweet 16 appearance. Win the first 2 games and make it to the Sweet 16. But after watching the preseason game against Tennessee and the first 5 games, I've grown to say Sweet 16, they could be Elite Eight. And I've dabbled with Final Four, and I'm not yet. Not yet. We've got a lot of games to look. But now I've gone clearly from Sweet 16 to say Elite Eight. Now I know Coach Shire very much to go beyond where he was last year as he continues trajectory. And if he can, it would be, he'd love to see him in the finals. I'm just not there yet, but that's okay. I'm thoroughly enjoying this year's team and not trying my best not to talk about last year's team or other Duke teams, just enjoying this bunch of guys.
That's right. And I think as each game goes by, it's gotten easier to do that. And they they've been a lot of fun to watch. And there's a lot of it's like a good TV show. There's a lot of different characters on this team, and they've been entertaining for sure. And I've liked the trajectory that they're on early this season, where they've been improving steadily each game. So, and I also like the fact that they've had these early tests: the Tennessee game, exhibition, the Texas game, Kansas, and we've got a bunch more coming up in late November and December before we get to conference play. And conference play is going to be vastly different than it was last year. I don't anticipate 30-point wins in conference play in the same degree as it was last year, which is a really good thing for Duke this season. So,
well, but Jack, one more point, and I think we've got to get a shout out to one of our listeners who said, "Let's be clear, they're going to lose 5 or 6 games this year. Um, it's about right, and therefore they're not going to win every night. So we manage our expectations. We make certain that we're in good shape heading into the ACC tournament, heading into March Madness, but that they're going to lose some games, and it'll be tough for us, especially if they're late night games. And we're up again as we were after Kansas till a quarter to one. And another shout out to the 30 or so people that were on with us until a quarter to one in the morning. It was just, it was great. But um, I look forward to seeing how each game is a test. So Kansas, for instance, was without their best player, Darren Peterson. And so, yet the history of the matchup suggested don't think it's going to be a blowout. And it was around, it turned out to be a 12-point win. But that second half, it got down to a 3-point lead. And so there is a great test of what is the team going to do? Are they going to fold, or are they going to come along and hang on, and actually, instead of 3 points, they win by 12, which is exactly what your team should be doing. So I don't want to hear from people that Kansas didn't have Peterson. It was a great learning experience for this team.
yeah, and that's all these games are about in November and December. Obviously, want to win them all. Want to win them all. But as long as the team is continuing to improve, that's really what matters the most, because nobody cares that Florida lost to Kentucky early on last season. All they care about is Florida won the national championship. That's it. So that's all that's going to matter at the end of the day. And to your point, is the team peaking when we get to the ACC tournament, and most importantly, is the team healthy when we get to the ACC tournament. Those are the two big things. So flipping back to the players, going through them, individually at this point. Cam Boozer, I think, has had a very positive start to his college career, because he's one of the younger players in college basketball, and he has one of the biggest burdens in college basketball with all that he has to do for this Duke team. And I think it's important for me to say that before I get to his numbers from the two big games, because the counting stats are pretty good. 16 and a half points, 11 and a half rebounds, 4 assists, 1 steal, half a block, 2 turnovers, so 2-to-1 assist turnover ratio. Solid. You take that. The issue is his efficiency in the two games. 35% from the field, 13% from three, 71% from the free throw line. So, in some ways, Duke has won these two games by double digits in spite of Cam Boozer being inefficient from the field. And I think he's going to figure that out as the season goes on. I really do. This guy he's got too much of a pedigree from his high school career, and he's a very cerebral player. He's smart. He reads the floor really well. You can see that with his passing. I am sure the finishing is going to come around, which actually gives me a lot of hope for this team to be a Final Four team when we get to, I guess that would be April. It would be past March. But it's actually a real positive for me that Duke is winning these games by double digits, and Cam hasn't figured out the offensive efficiency yet.
So with Cam, he's drawing at least a double team.
Yes, that's a great point.
But let's just say that Cooper Flagg initially was having a double team until they found out that was not a great strategy with the emergence of Con Knipple, and that they couldn't leave him alone. And so, but one of the things that he's taken advantage of in most of the games is when he is double, and sometimes it just feels like he's being triple teamed down low. That in fact his passing as a big guy is really good. And so for me at this stage, after the total of 5 games, 2 important games, it is, does he still have the ability? Is he peaked? Not at all. There is still a large way for his game to go and get even better. And for me, that's sort of the joy of Cam Bruiser, is that he will figure more things out. And like Cooper Flagg's father, I'm sure Carlos Boozer has his own way of dealing with his sons, and will say, here's what you need to do. And Shire is great at it, and I really look forward to it. But it will still be my highlight for him. Will be the 23 rebounds against Tennessee.
Oh, okay. I'm same game, but I'm going specifically the snatch block on Jacoby Gillespie and then the outlet pass. He's had some tremendous outlet passes, but that snatch block, because it was against Gillespie, who's a very good player, that was crazy. And I'm glad you brought up the double and sometimes triple teams, because I would have felt really bad if I didn't mention that. That is definitely a factor in his inefficiency. I've watched a lot of college basketball this year. I haven't seen anyone be double teamed and triple teamed. Like the Kansas game was crazy. It was every time he touched the ball. I haven't seen anybody get that kind of treatment in college basketball so far. Haven't watched everybody, but it is wild the amount of attention he draws. And the 4 assists is it leads the team in these games, and I think he leads the team in the totality. But he also gets a bunch of pass to assists, where he swings the ball across the court and then somebody passes somebody else. So his offensive importance and production isn't totally encapsulated in the counting stats, which is
right. There's a court awareness,
yes,
about him that is just high level. And so high ceiling still left. Love where he is right now.
High ceiling, incredibly high floor. Gangba, because I think he's the next guy. Duke has clearly established a pecking order with 1, 2, and 3 on this team, and Gangba is certainly the third guy. And in the 2 big games, 11.5 points, 5 rebounds, 2 assists, a steal, half a block. He's at 25.5 minutes, and it would be more his big bugaboo, as we all know, foul trouble. He's in the 2 games, 4.5 fouls per game. If he's at 73% from the field, 70% from the free throw line, he hasn't connected on a three this season. I think one thing that would help the Duke offense is if him and we'll get to Malik later on can start to find, they don't have to hit a ton, but just make the defenses respect them from the 3 point line, space the floor, and then when they, because they're two of our best passers, when they're at that 3 point line, it would make the defense come up to them and allow the backdoor cutting to be more open. So I think Gangba's been very good. The two things would be the fouls and then the defensive positioning. Because at times, now Badunga is one of the more athletic centers you go up against, but it's been in other games too where guys have been able to get around him. And so I think if he can do a better job of just being solid defensively, not fouling, they're kind of in tandem. His production will go up because he'll just be on the court more.
Um, when he's on the court, we love him. And the only reason he's not on the court is when he's in foul trouble. And unfortunately, that is really important to Duke for how far we can go. And this is something he has to figure out. It is of the 4 or 5 fouls, it'll be one or two that you'll go, no, no, don't. It's a silly foul. Um, I know for spacing, the 3 point line would be great. But we've also talked about at the end of the Kansas game that we'd love for someone to be shifting to about the free throw line, and that could be Brown, but we'll get to Malik later, or it could be Gamba. We know they're capable of it. So let's see what happens. But love Pat's start to the year. He's, because he was behind a lot of players last year. So even getting 26 minutes a game is a lot of time for him. It's not an even split with Malik. He's the guy. And, so.
And also, Malik and Pat will play together. So there
Yep.
is overlap there. All right, let's round out the rest of the starting lineup. So we'll go to Dame Sar first. He's at 7 points, 5 rebounds, 1.5 assists, 1.5 steals. He's at 36% from the field, 38% from three, and 43%, his big bugaboo, from the free throw line. His defense has been very good. The offense has been up and down. And there are flashes though. I really liked it. The process of getting there, I didn't love, but then he finished really well with this nice wraparound pass to Gangba, which was really cool. I was rewatching the all the buckets that Duke puts up, all the made baskets, and I was rewatching that, and I saw that play again, and I was like, man, that was a really good pass. He's got flashes. I think actually these games like Niagara, Howard are important for Dame Sar to keep building his confidence and get accustomed offensively because his defense, it's really well proven at this point. He's a really outstanding perimeter defender and disruptive on that end of the court.
Unfortunately, his highlight is probably his individual moment will be remembered by the missed fast break dunk. But there are so many more highlights to come. And the coaching staff is so high on him that who am I to say that they're wrong? I think that Sar, great ceiling for him too. That there is much more to come. and he is going to round out. And what we've seen so far, bad pun, um, was that there's a guy to be developed there that will be a very, very good player.
Caleb Foster, 7 points, 2 rebounds, 1.5 assists, 1 turnover, 25 and a half minutes. In part, 2.5 fouls. So there was the Kansas game. He came out, which I want to get off. One thing, I saw a bunch of tweets going around talking about Caleb Foster was the only Duke player with a negative plus minus in the game, but that's not fair to Caleb Foster. Plus minus, I like the stat, but it can be noisy at times. And in that particular game, Foster, I thought he played well in the Kansas game, and he came off the court because he picked up his second foul on what was a phantom call um, right after Badunga came out of the game, and that was really the swing factor of that first half and when Duke went on the run. So it's not fair to Foster in that sense. 42% from the field, 40% from three, and 2 of 4 in the Kansas game from the free throw line, 50%. That's his. This year, it's the only thing that's carried over from last year that still irks me about Foster is the free throw shooting. But I gotta tell you, I came into this year a bit worried about Foster. He's been solid. He's just been really good defensively. He's done a good job bringing the ball up the court, just getting guys into their sets. I just think he's been really steady and solid for this Duke team. Not spectacular, but just solid for Duke. And I've been impressed with his just he's just level, He's just been level.
Well, and but I would say definitely improvement over last year. Um, don't feel as frustrated as a fan that he's on the court. Wasn't calling for him to, well, initially, but our loyal followers were saying, give him a break. And I changed course initially. I was saying, let's get it to Caden to really get the minutes. But Caleb's defense is a great contribution. Now, let's talk about his free throw shooting, because it's as a team that if they're another key for them to go deep as a team, it's Gangba has to figure out how to stay out of foul trouble. And the second thing is they must shoot over 80% from the free throw line if they're going to go deep. It has to be in these close games when other teams are fouling you that we have a lot of confidence. We're going to the free throw line. We're going to come out with more likely 2 free throws. And what happens with Foster is he often goes to that free throw line and hits the front of the rim. So if I was his coach, I would, he's already, this is his junior year. If I was going to make an adjustment on his free throw shooting, I would actually be looking at Cameron Boozer, who at his size has a very high arc to his free throw, which is very, very interesting. His whole approach to free throw shooting, and it's very good. It's the same way when he's open, how he shoots his 3-pointer. It's got the same form, and we've said that watching Caleb when he hits his 3-pointer, his form is exactly the same as when he goes to the free throw line. So why is he hitting the front of the rim? And so I would actually argue that he needs a higher arc on it to create more room in the cylinder. And for some reason, he just, higher arc, step into it to get it over the rim. That's another approach to it. It's yes, you set your feet, but it's sort of like in the motion, you can do more to push off. But I think it's got to be combined with an arc, and that's the most frustrating thing for me right now about his game is free throw shooting.
But overall, really good. Really good start to the season for Mr. Foster. That brings us to Caden Boozer. His His point guard counterpart, 4.5 points in 19 minutes, 3.5 rebounds, 2.5 assists, 50% from the field, and he's 100% from three. That was one attempt in the Kansas game, and 100% from the free throw line. It's also only two attempts. So a little bit of grains of salt there. He did play considerably more in the Kansas game than the Texas game, which I think is a positive sign for Caden. I think he is starting to figure it out offensively. I think he is a good off ball defender, but on the ball, he can have difficulties, which is why Foster is starting.
You know, Caden showed us there was that in the first half of the second half, there was that period that they had a lineup on the court that we were both looking at, going like, "Where's our wait? There's no one that can score here." And Caden rolled off 7 points in 2 minutes. He had a 3-pointer and then a pair of twos. And so there's a reason why it's not just Cameron that people talk about, it's Caden as well. Now, at the high school level, the two of them could dominate, and now they're up against much greater competition. And Caden's got to this is a you know Cameron's size and ability obviously has got him as one of the next great big guy stars coming out of Duke at the power forward position. Caden, we're going to have to give a greater learning curve. So the next two games coming up are very good for him to be able to figure this out, improve on defense, and then we'll see where he is by the Arkansas game is the next test, I think. Okay, so that's my thoughts on him, but couldn't be happier that he's here with us.
Malik, 4 points, 16 and a half minutes, 2 rebounds, 2.5 turnovers. He actually leads us in turnovers in those games. 50% from the field, 2 of 3 from the free throw line, didn't hit a three. And it's funny because you rattle off those stats and you'd say, boy, those are some ugly numbers. But if you watch the games, you'd say he's one of our top 3 or 4 most impactful players. And I think the play, we didn't do it for everybody, but the play that I would say that highlights his season so far is poor Paul Mbia for Kansas came into the game because of foul trouble, and Malik Brown poked it away from him 3 straight times. And then got called for a foul, and yeah, it probably was a foul, but he took it away from Mbia 3 straight times. He couldn't hold on to the ball with Malik Brown around. I would say the two things that I actually am looking for him to improve on in this game with Niagara and then Sunday with Howard is that it has nothing to do with defense, by the way. It never would. The guy's ability defensively is just unbelievable. It's on offense. Two things. Can he be more aggressive? I know you mentioned you want him to shoot the mid-range shot. I don't see that in his repertoire. But what I do want to see is when he catches the ball and no one's guarding him, be aggressive, go to the basket, and then if they come at you at the basket, then look to pass. Because he's a great passer. And then with his passing, yeah, he's leading the team in turnovers in these two games, but it's a combination of he hasn't quite figured out the chemistry with his teammates with his passing. And I think that goes to what Shire said after the Texas game, which is Malik doesn't really have chemistry with these guys. He didn't practice a lot with them over the summer due to his shoulder and then his knee injury. And so I think that is going to be important to develop in this game with Niagara.
So there was that game last year when he hit the 2 threes in a row.
North Carolina.
And right. And so I would love to see him attempt the three. We know he can hit it, but I do see him as the guy around the free throw line where he was open boy, was he, there was no one near him for a 2 point shot. And having someone like that in the middle, shuffling that across the inside the box and attempting the shot, I don't know if I need him to drive. I need him to take the shot. So that's what I'm like. Otherwise, I have never, it would be hard other than the really, really big men, the 7 footers who block shots. I've never enjoyed watching a player on defense who is
Yeah.
not a guard, who can harass somebody or who is a big guy, um, a Derek Lively, just
Yeah.
take your pick of which ones that are swatting balls away that can just interrupt the flow of a team the way he does. And I can't think of anybody that could do this. And uh, just he continues to amaze me. The doctor of deflection.
The I always think about Derek Lively versus North Carolina. He had like 8 blocks. Caleb Love and R.J. Davis couldn't do anything, and I think he finished with 4 points. It was far and away the best player on the court. And Malik does a similar thing, just differently with his hedging on ball screens, his deflections. He just completely changed the game. We're gonna have to agree to disagree on what he should do at
Okay.
the free throw line
Uh,
extended,
yep.
because I think he I'm gonna have to call. He is. I don't think he's a great mid range shooter, but he's a great finisher around the rim. So we'll leave it at that. Two more players, and then we'll get out of here. So Nick Hamenia, 4 points in 15 minutes. He played less in the Kansas game than the Texas game. 3 rebounds and an assist. Limited minutes, so I'm not going to go through the percentages because it's not really fair to him. I like his energy. I like his willingness to attack the basket. I think that's really important. He draws fouls pretty consistently, and I just there's something about his energy that's infectious, and I just like when he's on the court.
He's a glue, the classic glue guy. He is the guy who's first to the floor. He, you know, you got to have a guy like him if you're going to make a run, for the 50-50 balls. Um, but after Sarr was able to join the lineup, I think Himenia's minutes are somewhat more limited. But love putting him in instant energy. I'm more convinced that he can get to the basket than I am Malik Brown.
Oh,
Uh,
well, I don't disagree with you on that. Hemeni is a better dribbler for sure, but we'll leave Malik Brown alone until the next time. Um, Lastly, Darren Harris, because we've got lots of things happening at the house, so we got to wrap up here. Darren Harris, he's only played 8 minutes in the 2 games, so he is clearly the ninth guy. He is 2.5 points, 1 assist, half a steal. His percentages are not great, but again, similar to Himenia, I'm not going to judge him on 8 minutes of playing time in these games with how well he shoots. I would love for him to come in and be able to, be a flamethrower right away. But what I've noticed in the games in between, the Army game, I think it was the Indiana State game as well, he's tended to get his threes late in those games. And I think that's because he's gotten more minutes and he's gotten more into a flow. And so can he figure out in his limited minutes how, and it's very difficult. It's like NBA veterans talk about where it's taken them a lot of years to figure out how to come in off the bench and be ready to hit your shots right away. It's a very difficult job. So can he figure that out over the course of the season? Because there's gonna be I think there's gonna be a big game where Darren Harris hits 3 threes and is an important part of Duke winning. It may not be 6 threes like Isaiah Evans did against Auburn, but I think he's gonna have a 3-3 performance, in one of these big non-conference games and gonna have an impact in them.
All I can say is he's almost got the role. Now, whether he can live up to it, whether his game is the same as Isaiah Evans, he almost could be that guy. And we saw it in the Army game when he hit 5 threes. I mean, so is he capable of it? Yes. Do we want 5 from him? No. But in a game we're down by 8 and he can hit a pair, we're down by 2. And that's what I hope we can see out of him, that offensive injection when we need it.
Exactly right. Exactly right. All right. If you haven't subscribed already, please hit that subscribe button, like this video, drop your score predictions in the comments. We've got to give ours really quickly here before we sign off. I
Ah,
am I am going Duke 92, Niagara 53.
90-49.
Under 50. I like it. I like it. All right. So those are our score predictions. Until post game, we'll see you guys as always around 9
We're going to
o'clock.
give you 2 symbols for this one. I jumped the gun.
All right. 2 from you, 1 from me. Until next time. Peace.
Peace.